everybody, Swirl the Cat here, and today I have another deck profile for you. Some people have been asking for Hexeblaumon, so I decided to show you guys my build. I've been practicing a lot with it, and I think I found a build that I like, so hopefully this can help out some people trying to build Hexeblaumon. So let's get right into it. I'll start off by showing you guys the eggs. It shouldn't be too hard to guess what eggs I'm running here. Agumon is probably the best egg to run in this deck. It almost feels like it was made for this deck because of its effect. So when attacking once per turn, if your opponent has a Digimon with no Digivolution cards in play, you can draw one card, and that's going to go off a lot in this deck because a lot of your opponent's Digimon are not going to have any Digivolution cards underneath it. Next up is the level 6s, and we're running only 4 level 6s because it's all about Hexeblaumon. So 4 copies of this guy. He's the main unit of the deck. So he has an ability when attacking, trash up to 2 Digivolution cards from the bottom of one of your opponent's Digimon. Then if one of your opponent's Digimon has no Digivolution cards in play, he gets jamming. And then on all turns, when your opponent's Digimon with has no Digivolution cards, cannot attack or block. So anything on your opponent's field that has nothing underneath it won't be able to attack or block as long as Hexeblaumon is on the field. But we also have some option cards in this deck that can kind of have that same ability as well. Hexeblaumon is very good for, his second effect, but also it's really cool that he gets jamming if your opponent has something on their side of the field with no Digivolution cards. The only thing, the biggest, I think that's like downfall of, or flaw of Hexeblaumon is that he has a small number. It's only 11 DP, but he kind of makes up for it from getting rid of your opponent's Digivolution cards and doing some other stuff. So, 4 copies of Hexeblaumon. Let's move on to the level 5s. Running 4 copies of Chris Paildramon. I was about to say Paildramon, but that's not it. But anyways, this is all the way back from BT5, and he's just very good because he gives you 1 security attack if your opponent has a Digimon with no Digivolution cards in play, and his 1 Digivolving skill is also pretty useful to trash the bottom Digivolution card of all of your opponent's Digimon. It's pretty cool that it gets all of your opponent's Digimon instead of just like one of them, which I think the newer Chris Paildramon did something where it, I actually have it sitting right here. It did something where it gets rid of choose 2 Digivolution cards underneath one of your opponent's Digimon, and then it could stun one. But I prefer this one because it gives plus a security attack to your Hexeblaumon, and it gets rid of 1 thing from all of your opponent's Digimon, so I just kind of prefer this one. But if you guys wanted to run the other one, you could do that also. So we're running 4 copies of this guy. And then we have 4 other level 5s here. We got Magiramon. I'm probably saying that wrong. But anyways, this guy's from BT6. He has a 1 Digivolving skill to trash 1 Digivolution card from the top of one of your opponent's Digimon. But we're mainly using him for his inheritable. That is pretty useful in this deck for Hexeblaumon. When attacking once per turn, if your opponent has no Digimon with Digivolution cards in play, unsuspend this Digimon. So then you could stand back up your Hexeblaumon and attack again with jamming, and then you could also trash another 2 Digivolution cards with him because his when attacking ability isn't once per turn. So you could just get more than 1 attack in with Hexeblaumon if you have this guy underneath of him. So I like to run that guy for the multiple attacks. Let's move on to the level 4s. Running 4 copies of Paildramon. This one is the newer one. It came out of Dragonic Roar. So he has a 1 Digivolving skill to choose 1 Digivolution card under one of your opponent's Digimon and trash it. And then he has an ability during your opponent's turn. When an opponent's Digimon with no Digivolution cards would Digivolve, increase the Digivolution cost by 1. So this is just to kind of trip up your opponent a little bit because they're probably going to have something out with no Digivolution cards. So if they're going to Digivolve into a a level 4 that costs 2. If this guy is underneath, you know, one of your level 5s or higher, it's going to cost 3 instead, or, you know, same thing if they're trying to go into like a level 6 that costs 3, it's actually going to cost 4. So they're going to have to think a little bit more when it goes to their turn and they're trying to digivolve their things with no Digivolution cards on their field. So this is just kind of like an annoying card for your opponent to play against. It's just supposed to trip them up a little bit, slow them down a little bit, and make them think a little bit more when that inherited effect is, you know, active. Next up, we're running 4 copies of Kumon, the hybrid card. I really like this card in this deck, and, you know, hybrids are just pretty good in general, and they kind of give the deck the boost that it needs, because it is, like, I want to say, like, a little bit of an older deck, and it kind of needs, like, a little bit of speed, and I think these hybrids that I'm running in here kind of give it that. But anyways, he's a hybrid, so you can digivolve Kumon on top of one of your blue Tamers as if it were level 3 blue Digimon for 2. And then, when digivolving, trash 1 Digivolution card from the bottom of one of your opponent's Digimon. Like I said, I just like him for his main effect and the fact that he's a hybrid. So we're running 4 of him. And then we're running 2 copies of the, I believe this was called like the Beast form, if I remember. It's been a minute since I watched the 4th season. But, let's see if I can say this guy's name. Coreykakumon, I believe. He's really cool. I liked him in the show, but we're running 2 of these to kind of go with our Kumamons. You could put him on top of Kumamon for 1, or you can digivolve on top of a 3 for 3, but you mostly want to digivolve on top of Kumamon. That's why we're only running like 2 of this, because you really don't want to go from 3 into this guy because it'll cost you a lot. But he's also a hybrid, so you can digivolve this card on top of one of your blue Tamers as if the Tamer is a level 3 blue Digimon for the cost of 2. And then he has the Wind Digivolving effect. If a card with hybrid in its traits or Tommy is in this Digimon's Digivolution cards, one of your opponent's Digimon with no Digivolution cards can't attack or block until the end of their next turn. So if we do run 1 Tommy, even though he is at 1, but we run 4 Kumamon, which is a hybrid, so if you get this guy on top of either one of those things, you can stun one of your opponent's Digimon with no Digivolution cards, which is why I just like running this guy. I think he's pretty good for kind of slowing down your opponent. And that's it for the level 4s, so let's go on to the level 3s. Here we are running 4 copies of Bulu Kumon. He's pretty old, he's all the way from BT5, and he just has the ability, when you trash a Digivolution card on one of your opponent's Digimon, you gain a memory, and, you know, gaining memory is always super helpful. This deck doesn't need, like, a ton of memory, but the more you have, you know, the better, because you'll just benefit. You could play, like, more things from your hand and kind of speed up into Hexeblaumon as fast as possible, you know, with more memory, and this effect's gonna go off pretty often because a lot of your cards trash your opponent's Digivolution cards. So we got 4 copies of Blue Kumon for one of our level 3s here. He does cost 4, so you kind of want to make him your target that you digivolve into for 0 in your breeding area. Next up, we have a newer card. We got Snow Agumon, and other than being like super adorable, he's also pretty good. He has I think the exact same ability of the Pale Dramon that came out in the same set as he did when one of your opponents is trying to digivolve a Digimon with no Digivolution cards. It's going to increase the Digivolution cost by 1. So, you know, it'll be like, let me grab the other guy. Yeah, I think it was this one. Yep. So this Pale Dramon, you know, if you have him like on top of your Snow Agumon, and then let's say you have like a level 5 on top, and when it goes back to your opponent's turn, they're going to have to cost like 2 more to digivolve something that has no Digivolution cards, and that's like super annoying for your opponent. You know, if they're going into a freaking 4, it's gonna cost like 4 for them, and then if they're going into like a 3, it's mostly gonna cost 5, and like so it's the same reason why I'm running Pale Dramon is it's just gonna make your opponent think a little bit more. It's gonna slow them down, kind of stun them for a little bit, or they'll have to think about like, oh, I have to get rid of my opponent's stack so I can digivolve for cheaper. and then they'll use up their memory trying to get rid of your stack. So either way, it's super annoying for your opponent to play against things that make their Digivolution cost higher. Next up, running 2 copies of Labramon, and we're mostly running this to put underneath our Hexeblaumon when Hexeblaumon gets jamming. So this just says when attacking once per turn, if the Digimon has jamming, gain a memory, and you know, gaining memory is always good, like I said before. Next, we're running 1 copy of Kumon. So on your opponent's turn, can't reduce Digivolution costs. And then we're running 1 Madoki Betamon. On all turns, your opponent can gain memory with Tamer effects. You know, if you prefer to run like more copies of these guys, you could take out Labramon and then just like double up on these guys. But I like to have a lot of variety in this deck, so I'm just running 1 copy of each. That's it for the Digimon cards, so let me show you guys what Tamers we're running. Running 2 copies of this really old Matt. All the way back from set 1, he has the ability that sets you to 3 if you're at 2 or less when it goes back to your turn. And on your turn, when you play a blue Digimon, you can suspend him to trash the bottom Digivolution card of one of your opponent's Digimon, and he has the same security effect as like all the Tamers do to play it without paying its memory cost. So I just like Matt because he sets you to 3. Sometimes you do get off his second ability to trash one of your opponent's things. If you're playing one of your level 3s from your hand, like Madoki Betamon or Sakumon, but you can also just get it off whenever, you play something from your hand just to get rid of some of your opponent's Digivolution cards. But I mostly like him because he's a blue memory setter, and his second ability does happen rarely. But we're only running 2 of him because it doesn't happen that much. Like I said, we are running 1 copy of Tommy. Even though he's at 1, he's still, like, super good. I like him, and, he boosts the deck, and if you get him underneath one of your hybrids, it's even better. But anyways, security effect just to play him without paying the memory costs, and then his on-play skill is to trash 3 Digivolution cards from the bottom of one of your opponent's Digimon. And then he has a when attacking once per turn skill until the end of your opponent's next turn. One of your opponent's Digimon with no Digivolution cards can't attack or block. So it's super annoying if you have Tommy underneath one of your hybrids, or even underneath like one of the hybrids and then into the beast form, because you're going to be stunning like something with Tommy's effect and then something else with the beast form. So, that's basically why Tommy was banned, because he costs so little and he does so much, and it's just super annoying to stun your opponent's Digimon for a turn because it doesn't have any Digivolution cards. And making your opponent's thing have no Digivolution cards is easy because, he trashes a whole 3 things just from playing him for 3 from the bottom of one of your opponent's Digimon. So I can see why Tommy was banned, or, restricted. But we're still running 1 because he's super solid. There's no reason not to run him. Oh, we're also running another good Tamer, or a great Tamer really, to run in this deck. We're running 4 copies of Sora and Joe, and it's mostly for actually all of its effects are super good. I was gonna say mostly for the first one, but we're really running it for the second one. But this card is great all round for this deck. So at the start of your turn, if your opponent has a Digimon with no Digivolution cards in play, gain 2 memory. And then on your turn, when you attack with a blue Digimon, you can suspend this Tamer to trash up to 2 Digivolution cards from the bottom of one of your opponent's Digimon. So, this is going to do everything that you want to do in this deck, which is gain memory and trash your opponent's things, so you can have it set up for Hexeblaumon. So, when it goes back to your opponent's turn, they're going to be stunned because they have Digimon that have no Digivolution cards underneath. So 4 copies of Sora and Joe. It's great when you get these in your security and just play them, because when it goes back to your turn, your opponent has something with no Digivolution cards, you're going to gain 2 automatically. That's it for the Tamers. So let me show you guys what option cards we're running. I'm running 2 copies of this new one from BT11 called Ice Statue. I feel like it works out pretty well in this deck. It does cost 6, but it can reduce the cost if you have a blue Tamer in play, buy one, so it'll cost 5, and you normally do have a blue Tamer in play in this deck since we're running like 7 or 8 of them. We're running a lot of Tamers. So this will probably cost 5, but it's also great if you have it in your security also, so you don't have to use it from your hand. But it trashes the top 3 Digillusion cards of one of your opponent's Digimon, then it returns one of your opponent's Digimon with no Digillusion cards to its owner's hand. So, you know, I like this because it removes some more scary things that's on your opponent's field, like say if they have something that's bigger than Hexeblaumon after Hexeblaumon attacks, you can use Ice Statue to just get rid of the top Digillusion cards of one of your opponent's Digimon, and then hopefully that big thing has no Digillusion cards underneath it, and you can just spin it back to your opponent's hand with Ice Statue. But it's a new card I'm trying out, and I feel like it fits into the deck really well. If you didn't want to run this, you could just run like Savoured Breath or something more generic that you enjoy more, but I like Ice Statue. Next up, we're running 3 copies of this other newer card from Dragonic Roar. I never know how you say this card. I think it's like Surai or Solrai. Some people say it differently, but we're just going to call it like Solrai because that's the only way I could really say it. So it has a main skill to trash the top 4 Digillusion cards on one of your opponent's Digimon, and then till the end of your opponent's turn, your opponent's Digimon with no Digillusion cards cannot attack. So, this is just kind of literally a Hexeblaumon in the form of an option card, because not only does it trash some of your opponent's Digillusion cards, it also stuns all of your opponent's Digimon with no Digillusion cards, so they won't be able to, like, attack you or your Digimon at all when it goes back to their turn, and they have things with no Digillusion cards, so this can kind of stall out your opponent, saying if you're, if you're going a little slower and you don't have Hexeblaumon out quite yet, you can drop one of these Soul Rise to just trash your opponent's Digimon Digillusion cards and then like stun them for a turn so you can catch up and get out your Hexeblaumon. Next up, we're running 3 copies of Blue Memory Boost. I think, everyone kind of knows what these Memory Boosts do. But if you don't, when you play it, you can reveal top 4 cards of your deck, add a blue Digimon card, and then put the rest on the bottom in any order. And then put this card in your battle area, and then, in your battle area, you could trash it to gain 2 memory, but you can't, gain 2 memory the same turn that you activate it. And then the security ability is just to put it into your owner's battle area. We're basically running this just to find our pieces, like Hexeblaumon or our level 5s, or anything that we will need to build our stack. And then lastly, we're running 1 copy of Ice Wall. This copy, I feel like, this card is always like a one of in like most blue decks, because kind of for the same reason for Tommy, even though it's at 1, it doesn't mean you probably shouldn't run it, because this card is super, super annoying and super good. In security, it lets you gain 2 memory right off the bat, and then if you do have it in your hand, just for 1 memory, you can give all of your opponent's Digimon the ability, when attacking, lose 2 memory until the end of their next turn. So, Ice Wall is super, super annoying, especially when you're at 0, and then you use Ice Wall to flip turn, so it leaves your opponent at 1, and then it really doesn't give your opponent any options other than to attack or Digivolve and then pass turn back to you. But that has been it for the deck profile. I hope you guys enjoyed. Like I said, I've been playing this deck for a good amount of time online against people and people at locals, and this is the way that I kind of like it, and I thought I could help you guys out who are trying to build it. And I had a lot of fun with this deck and using this deck. Even though it's a little older and, maybe not as good as some current decks, I feel like this deck, needs a lot of love, and it's, it has like a special part, or a place in my heart, because, it's just, I've always liked Hexeblaumon when he first came out, so it's great to go back to it and update it with some new blue cards that really work with this deck. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know what you think in the comments, and I will see you all next time.